The river did not rage when it tried to take her, it whispered. It whispered cold into her bones, wrapped its dark fingers around her skirts, and pulled with the quiet patience of something that knew it always won in the end. By the time her body struck the water, the sky above had already turned the color of bruised steel, and the world seemed to hold its breath as she disappeared beneath the surface. When she finally broke back into the air, gasping and choking, it was not her own strength that saved her, but the sudden shadow of a man moving against the current like he belonged to it. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that even strangers can save one another in the darkest moments, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. She had not meant to fall into the river. Nothing in her life, not even the long chain of small miseries that led her west, had suggested such an ending. The woman had been walking along the muddy bank with numb feet and a head full of noise, the kind of noise grief makes when it has nowhere else to go. Her husband's face still lived behind her eyes, pale and still, buried weeks ago under foreign soil. Her child's cough still echoed in her ears, even though the small body had gone quiet forever during the crossing. Every step she took toward the frontier had been taken on faith alone, and that faith had thinned with every mile. When her foot slipped on wet clay, the river did the rest. The cold shocked her more than the fear. It stole her breath and turned her limbs heavy, dragging her downward as if the weight of her losses had finally found a physical form. She swallowed water, tried to scream, and found that sound did not exist down there. The world narrowed to pain, panic, and the strange calm that comes when the body begins to give up. Above her, shapes blurred and light fractured, and she thought, with a strange clarity, that perhaps this was easier than walking one more mile alone. What she did not see was the Mandan warrior who had been tracking along the river's edge, following signs only he could read. He had seen many things in his life: floods that swallowed villages, winters that starved the proud, and soldiers who burned without listening. He had learned to move with the land rather than against it, to respect the river as both giver and taker. When he heard the splash and saw the pale shape vanish beneath the surface, he did not hesitate. He stripped away his weapons and stepped into the water as if answering a call older than thought. The current fought him, but he knew its language. He dove, found her tangled skirts, and wrapped one strong arm around her before the river could claim her fully. When they surfaced, she clawed at him blindly, terror lending her a sudden, desperate strength. He held fast, not with force but with certainty, guiding them toward the bank with slow, powerful strokes. By the time they reached shallow ground, her body had gone slack, emptied of fight and breath. He dragged her onto the wet earth and pressed her chest until water spilled from her mouth, until air finally forced its way back in. Her body convulsed, and sound returned to the world in the form of ragged coughing and sobbing breaths. The warrior stayed low beside her, his presence steady, his hands warm against skin gone blue with cold. When her eyes finally opened, wild and unfocused, she saw not a monster from her fears, but a man with lines of concern carved deep into his face. The woman did not understand his words, but she understood his tone. The river receded behind her, and with it, the certainty of death. She lay there shaking, mud pressed into her hair, staring at the sky as if seeing it for the first time. Every breath hurt, but every breath was proof that she was still here. The Mandan warrior covered her with his own cloak, the rough fabric heavy and comforting, and waited until the tremors eased. Fear did not leave her all at once. It lingered in the way her eyes followed his every movement, in the way her hands clutched the cloak as if it might be taken away. Stories had taught her to be afraid of men like him, to expect cruelty or worse. Yet the man did not take, did not threaten, did not even demand gratitude. He simply built a small fire, fed it carefully, and offered her warmth in silence. As the fire crackled, memory returned with a vengeance. The woman remembered the wagon train that had moved on without her when she fell ill, the way her husband had already been dead by then, the way her child had slipped away one night while she sang through tears. She remembered standing on that riverbank, staring into the water, and feeling the unbearable weight of tomorrow. Whether she had slipped or stepped, she could no longer say. What mattered was that she was still breathing, and she did not know why. The Mandan warrior had lost, too. Loss was not foreign to him, it was a companion he had learned to walk beside. He had lost a brother to fever brought by traders, a sister to a winter storm that came too early, and a way of life that grew smaller every year. When he looked at the woman, shivering and hollow-eyed, he did not see an enemy. He saw someone carved open by the same sharp world. As the sun dipped lower, he helped her to her feet. Her legs barely held her, and she leaned into him without thinking, exhaustion overriding fear. Together, they moved away from the river to a small camp nearby. He gave her dried meat, water warmed by the fire, and time. Time, she would later realize, was the rarest gift of all. That night, wrapped in unfamiliar safety, the woman slept without dreaming for the first time since her child's death. When she woke, the world had shifted slightly on its axis. The pain was still there, heavy and present, but it no longer felt like a final sentence. The Mandan warrior was still there too, tending the fire, his back to her, trusting her enough to sleep unguarded near him. Over the next days, he guided her toward a nearby Mandan village. Along the way, she learned to walk again, not just on aching feet, but in spirit. Each step was an argument against the voice inside her that said she should have stayed in the river. She watched how he moved through the land, how he listened before acting, and something in her began to loosen. She had believed the world was only cruel, only hungry, only bent on taking. Now, evidence stood before her that it could also give. When they reached the village, curiosity met them, but not hostility. Elders watched with careful eyes, children stared openly, and women offered quiet help. The warrior spoke on her behalf, his words measured and firm. She did not know what he said, but she felt the result in the way hands reached out instead of away. A place was made for her near the fire, and food was shared without ceremony. Healing was not fast. Grief does not leave because kindness arrives, it simply learns to sit alongside it. There were nights she woke shaking, reaching for a child who was not there, and mornings when the weight returned so suddenly it stole her breath. Yet now, when it happened, there were people nearby. There was the memory of a strong arm pulling her from dark water. There was proof that even when she believed she was done, someone else had believed she was worth saving. She began to help where she could, mending, carrying water, learning small words of a new language. Each simple task stitched her back into the fabric of living. The Mandan warrior watched quietly as she changed, as color returned to her face and steadiness to her step. He did not claim credit, did not see himself as a savior. He had simply done what the moment required. Seasons turned. The river froze and thawed again, flowing on as it always had, indifferent to human sorrow and mercy alike. The woman stood on its bank one morning, the same place where she had nearly vanished, and felt no urge to step into it. Instead, she felt gratitude so sharp it hurt. She understood now that survival was not a betrayal of those she had lost. It was a way of honoring them by continuing. If this story is touching something inside you right now, if you feel that quiet ache of recognition or hope, please take a moment to like the video, share it, and let us know in the comments that you felt it too. Your engagement helps keep these human stories alive. Just before we reach the end, here's a special request. Please comment below with one word that this story stirred in your heart: hope, mercy, kindness, or something else entirely. The woman never forgot the moment the river released her, or the man who refused to let go. She carried that memory like a small, steady flame through the rest of her life. Long after she left the village and found a new path forward, she told the story not as one of rescue alone, but of recognition. Of two lives crossing at the edge of despair and choosing, together, to keep going. And somewhere, the Mandan warrior continued to walk beside the river, knowing that in saving a stranger, he had also saved a piece of himself.